Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Municipal Council combined meeting of Monday, October 7th, 2019. Everybody, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coyle.
Here.
Councilmember Deal. Councilmember Gomez.
Here.
Councilmember Joshi.
Present.
Councilmember Lombardi.
Here.
Councilmember Patil.
Here.
Councilmember Sandelsky.
Here. Adequate notice, please.
Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975 has been provided by an annual notice sent to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Sentinel on December 1st, 2018, and posted main lobby municipal complex on that same date.
Thank you. We have the review of the minutes. Any comments? Okay. Moving on to reports from all council committees. I'll start from my right. Councilman Coyle.
None, sir, Council President.
Thank you. Councilman Patil.
None, sir.
Councilman Joshi.
The library board meeting that was scheduled for tomorrow has been canceled. I disagreed with their reasoning. However, they've decided to cancel it.
Okay. Councilman Lombardi.
The landfill committee is meeting, I believe, on October 18th.
Thank you. Councilman Sandelsky.
Since Councilman Deal isn't here, on October 10th, we're going to have our Board of Ed Township Liaison meeting at the Board of Ed facilities.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving on to points of light. On October 19th, Saturday, Edison Recreation is hosting the Harvest Fund at Thomas Edison Center. And then from 3 to 6 p.m. The event is from 3 to 6 p.m. and then the Trail of Horror is going to begin from 6:30 to 9 p.m. That's always a great event, well attended, good family event, a lot of fun, scary, but serves the purpose. So if you can make it, great if you can join us. October 19th also, Clara Barton is going to have a block party. And on October 26th at Lake Papiani from 12 to 7 p.m. is the Horror Fest, being sponsored by the Edison Chamber of Commerce. Okay, moving on to the department items. From the business administrator, we have one resolution. Questions? From the Department of Finance, we have resolutions A through H. From the Department of Health, Resolution A. From the Department of Planning and Engineering, Resolutions A through D. From the Department of Public Works, Resolution A through F. From the Department of Recreation, Resolutions A through C. From the Chief of Fire, Resolutions A through D. From the Chief of Police, Resolutions A and B. From the Township Clerk, Resolutions A and B. From the Council Member of the Planning Board, Mr. Sandelsky.
We will be having our next meeting Tuesday, October 15th at 6:30.
Thank you, sir. Unfinished business. Ordinance 2053-209. Clerk, please read. Oh, I'm sorry. It's still in the work session. Any comments on that? Okay, ordinance 2054-2019. Okay. Communications, we have an email received from Mr. Bucci regarding the Board of Education bond additional tax increase projections for the next 30 years. And then there was communication added from, what's this? Residents from Edmond Street on a request for DOT. Okay.
Council President,
Yes, sir.
this I received from the residents off of Player, Edmond, and Gracie Street. The residents got together and they basically put together a letter to Council President and the Mayor's office, and we have about 25 signatures here. So if we can follow through and see what the next steps would be, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Sir? Okay, we're moving on to discussion items. I'll start from my right, Councilman Coyle.
Council President, today I had a long conversation with Maureen through email, and we probably went through about 20 different items, which are all taken care of, which I do appreciate the administration acting on that. I also want to mention I received my report in regards to the drug oversight through Woodbridge. I just want to follow up, and it doesn't have to be today, with 103 Hickory. We discussed a curb situation and the future DPW meeting for snow. Several residents called me, and I know it's difficult when the snow comes down, how they can plan on not parking in the street, or when it's obvious, move your car when it's snowing, but they're asking. So I'm just curious how we can try to make that happen. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Patil?
Done, sir.
Councilman Joshi?
Yes. I'd like to use the presentation. If anyone wants to go before me, more than welcome to. Okay. So I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but one of the things I was made aware of in the Clara Barton section of town was off of Gross Avenue and Coral Street, and Burchard is impacted as well. So there's 3 streets. I was made aware of a company that Able Trucking, Trucking, they've been using the street, like the actual street, throughout the day and night, and they load and unload their equipment onto it. Now, I brought this, you should know that prior to bringing this to the attention of the public, I went through the proper channels. I did. I sent the email, and the email that I got back was, the street is well maintained and swept clean on a regular basis, but all the operations are conducted behind the fence of their property, which, as you can clearly see, they are not. I went there a total of 5 times, and out of the 5 times that I went there at all different hours. This morning I was there between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. And they start very early. This picture right here is proof, not just this one, you know, just to dispute, you should know that I sent these pictures over as well. So this picture was taken at, I think, like 3 or 4 a.m. This is directly in front of someone's house. So there's a truck that is idling right in front of someone's house. And this is another picture, directly in front of someone's house. They load equipment, they unload equipment, just like that, along Coral Street and Gross Avenue. And they line their trucks up using the street as if it was their own personal property. Now, obviously, I'm going to do my homework, and I get that this is a light industrial area. But I believe that we, as a township, have been conflating the idea of what an industrial area is with a light industrial area. Because when you actually look, and this was this morning, all 5 of these pictures have been from different days. This was this morning right in front of the homes between Burchard and Gross Ave at about 4:40 a.m. when I took that shot. When you look at the actual definition of a light industrial area, I guess it's hard to read, but nowhere in there does it say that we can have truck depots. Okay, a truck depot, by definition on the township code, I mean, this picture, by the way, was taken from Google Photos. It means any building, structure, or land that uses trucks acting in, basically a storage place for trucks. That's not what a light industrial area is meant for. But that's what they're using this as. And I've seen the definitions, I've compared them with various facilities around town. I understand that light industrial areas can have 10% usage with trucks or hold them, But that's not the case with this. This picture was taken from Google Images, but right now, even that at the corner area, that 1/3, almost about 90% of the area is covered with these type of trucks that are just operating day in and day out. And if I was, this was brought to my attention last week. The residents told me that this has been going on since about 2009. So, and I've seen their videos. They've sent me videos from inside of their home where you can just hear like constant thumping like this. I was there this morning. I heard it. I've sent these videos over, and I want this to be addressed right away. My opinion, there's a noise violation for sure, because they're not supposed to be operating before 7 a.m., and they are. They're operating late into the night, early morning, as I was just there. Noise violation. They're not supposed to be idling, and they're not supposed to be using their personal, they're not supposed to be doing business on the street like they do. So between this is a zoning violation, a police issue, as well as health. In my opinion, is between all three, we have the ability to fine them between $2,000 to $3,000 a month. I don't know if we'll get that much, but I say we should just aim for it. Like, I don't understand why trucking companies are being able to get away with this throughout the town. And if I am incorrect about the definition about light industrial, then fine, I stand corrected on that one part of it, and then we need to change that ordinance so that it makes sure, so that we make sure that we can't have trucking companies encroach the rest of the township. But this, I can understand in one thing. If this was Raritan Center, that's another thing. But they can't be doing this. I've reached out, I went through the proper channel. This is the 5th time that I went out there, and it should be addressed. I mean, the email, I even stated in my email that I personally went there, I checked it out, and it wasn't taken seriously. So I hope that by the next time around, we don't just slap them with a $100 fine on it, or some light fine. We should have all 3 departments go out there and fine them through the wazoo. I have no sympathy for this, because this happens throughout all different parts of town. This is just one that I happened to catch this past week. So, and Maureen, I know it's not you. I know I've been speaking to you about this. I bomb you with a lot of different things all the time. I know this is not you, but we need to have, when especially, it shouldn't take a council member bringing this to the attention of the public like this to get something done. And I feel very strongly about this because I feel so bad for the residents. They wake up. When I went there this morning, those residents knew that I was there. It was 4:40 in the morning, and then they came out and they were like, hey, thanks for coming out here. Because they're already awake. So I hope this is addressed by the next council meeting, and I hope that all 3 departments are literally standing there ticketing them constantly until, hey, I don't feel bad if we drive them out of town. They don't belong there. By the definition, the way that I'm reading it, they don't belong there.
Council President, Councilman Joshi, I just wanted to know, did you talk to Jay Elliott? Because we had an issue like similar to that of idling trucks and what have you on Park Avenue, the old Dreyfus building. And he went out there and he issued summonses, whatever he had to do with the trucking company that was there. Did you talk to Jay about that?
I was told, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? I was told that the health department just went out there to address the noise issue. And that's fine if they address the noise issue, but that's not the rest of the issues.
No, they shouldn't be doing what they got going out there. I think you've read the situation correctly, and it's got to be corrected.
Yeah.
So I see Jay's not here today.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm not talking about one department or the other. I'm just saying that the feedback that I've gotten and that I see is that trucks tend to, and I don't have a problem with the industry itself. If this was all legal, I wouldn't be complaining. But I went there several times, witnessed it myself, did a Facebook Live video at 5 o'clock in the morning today, and they're using the street day and night just like this. Like, if you go there right now, I'm pretty sure they'd be on the streets like this. And it's just not fair.
No, it's wrong.
So I hope that this is addressed. And then the last thing, along the same street, is this dumpster. You know, the residents are pretty frustrated. This is right off of Burchard Street. When you enter that street, there's a dumpster that's been there, I was told, since 2010. I mean, it really brings between the trucks going in and out and this dumpster being the entrance for that street, I mean, the residents are just frustrated, and I feel bad for them. Good old residents of Clara, Barton. And so, that was what I had to discuss today.
Thank you,
Council
sir.
President,
There are other issues that I also wanted to address, but not related to this one.
Okay.
Did you want
Council
to?
President, I just wanted to, I won't be long-winded, but I have stopped by there more than a few times, and I think being polite is definitely over. I've spoken to the manager a few times about similar complaints, so I would hope that we can follow through. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, sir.
The other few things that I just wanted to mention, I don't know how to turn this off, was, Maureen, I still owe you the CBDG, I guess, grant number, location, or how we can try to get the solar panels for the VFW and the American Legion. I did find out that we do have, or there are other towns and municipalities that have done this. Depends on the area and section. We can get a grant. The veterans, it was the VFW, not American Legion, that actually sent me their bills. If there's any way that we can help them out, it would be great to put solar panels in there. They're spending almost $1,000 in electricity, and that's something that is covered by that grant if they get solar panels. I also spoke to people, and I'm sure that many of us have fielded this. You know, when it comes to youth sports, I understand that there have always been two different football leagues, but I've been speaking to parents from both sides, kids from both sides, and ultimately, I think that we should all try to work together to form one team. I think that it would be in the best interest of Edison Township as a whole if we tried to work toward this. I also spoke to someone who is running for council, who would, you know, she was also interested in taking part of this, and I think that we can work towards that goal. And I think that we may, you know, council members may have to step in, but let's definitely try to do that. The last thing, items that were done, I know in Campbell and Sutton's Ave, those residents reached out to me today, Maureen, they told me they got done, and I appreciated, that was very quick, that was just within a few days, the lights. And the guardrail I saw was also done today too, right? So thank you very much for that. Those were all the discussion items that I had for today.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Lombardi.
Thank you, Council President. Maureen, I'm just following up with regard to the last meeting. We tabled the tree ordinance so that we could do an investigation as to how much money was used last year and whether we're in need of this type of ordinance.
We needed to find out a bunch of stuff. We just met, Melissa met with the Environmental Commission briefly. I don't even have an update on that, but for the next meeting, I'll have it for you.
Okay, thank you. And then also, Council President, I know it wasn't mentioned during Points of Light, but I wanted to give a special shout out to the Department of Recreation and Joyce for the Fall Family Spectacular that was done on September 28th. It was a very good event, and I also would like to thank all those that made that possible, fire, police, administration, Department of Rec, Edison TV, all the bands that came out. It was just a great, all-around fun day. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Sandelsky.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Michael, I have a few things for you. How are we making out with Kenmore Road, the lady that came to the last meeting? Are we working with her to get that easement cleaned out?
Bear with me 1 second.
Yes, I do recall. This has been turned over to the DPW, and this is something that we're going to coordinate with them in terms of getting an exact date of when the construction quote unquote will be done, these cleanouts. And I will, I'll contact you via Maureen by the end of the week and provide you an update.
Okay. See, we had mentioned that it was on the list, and I just want to make sure it's on the list and it's getting done, so.
On the list.
Okay. Our park completions, where are we with that?
We continue to communicate with the contractor daily. It is an ongoing struggle. They are making progress. It is limited. I absolutely agree with the mayor and council's discussed with the progress, but we're just doing our best to manage the contractor and their progress.
What percent complete would you say we're at right now?
I would say we're about 85% completed.
And we're hoping that this will be done before the end of the month, before the weather starts getting cold?
The second statement, before the
I mean-
weather starts getting cold, yes. That we've been, we continue to push them and remind them and so forth. We've been doing our best to deal with them in this matter.
Okay. And then I see that we're getting ready to pave Talmadge Road. I see we're putting curb in, and
That's correct.
We're putting the new catch basin heads in and what have you. And you're doing it at night to not interfere with the traffic. So
Some sections, yes, but not the entire section of Talmadge Road.
so we're paving the entirety of Talmadge Road?
I don't have the limits. Let me.
I do. It's between Route 287 overpass and Park Ave.
Okay, so
That's the limits.
that's quite a distance then. We're doing. Okay, because it's much needed. It's really much needed. Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Sir? Okay, we are now moving to the regular portion of the meeting. We have the approval of the minutes. I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll forego Council President's remarks. We are moving on to the ordinances, unfinished business. Clerk, please read.
An ordinance approving the installation of a traffic control signal at the intersection of Woodland Avenue and Oak Tree Road, also known as CR 604 in the Township of Edison.
Okay, want to open it up to the public?
Motion to close the public portion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any council comments? Okay, motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coyle?
Yes.
Councilmember Joshi?
Yes.
Councilmember Lombardi?
Yes.
Councilmember Patil?
Yes.
Councilmember Sandelsky?
Yes.
Council President Gomez?
Yes. Ordinance 2054-2019. Clerk, please read.
An ordinance adopting the Ray Katina Automotive Properties Redevelopment Plan, identified on the township tax maps as block 198, lots 23.E1, 27 and 28, also known as 900, 910, and 920 Route 1, and block 199, lots 16R, 16S, 16T, 16U, 16V2, 16C1, 16D, 16E1, 16F1, 16G1, 17D1, 17D2, and 34, also known as 121 Main Street, pursuant to the local redevelopment housing law.
I want to open up to the public.
Motion to close the public portion.
Second.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coyle?
Yes.
Councilmember Joshi?
Yes.
Councilmember Lombardi?
Yes.
Councilmember Patil?
Yes.
Councilmember Sandelsky?
Yes.
Council President Gomez?
Yes. Okay. Communications, we don't have anything to add. I think we already added. Yep. So, okay, moving on to the consent agenda. I'm sorry. We're going to open it up to the public for the resolutions.
Motion to close?
Have a second? Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the consent agenda, on the proposed resolutions, anything to be pulled? Start from my right, Councilman Coyle.
None, sir.
Councilman Patil.
None.
Councilman Joshi.
None, sir.
Councilman Lombardi.
None, sir.
Councilman Sandelsky.
None, sir.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coyle?
Yes.
Councilmember Joshi?
Yes.
Councilmember Lombardi?
Yes.
Councilmember Patil?
Yes.
Councilmember Sandelsky?
Yes.
Council President Gomez?
Yes. Okay, moving on to all petitions and remarks. Start from the list. Erica Leeson.
Good evening. I wanted to distribute an email that I sent to the Health Department and to,
Ma'am, just for the record, name and address, please.
I'm sorry, Erica Leeson, 62 Rita Road,
Thank you.
in Richard Murray, same address. We live directly in front of the Department of Public Works building. It's basically almost in our backyard. We were there during the fire and all that. We've developed a problem in the last several months with the mounds of dirt that have been placed basically almost directly into our backyard. It first began a mouse problem, and now it's turned into rats. We have found nests. As of the other day, we had 2, and now we have 3. And you can see them coming in through this giant mound of dirt and mulch that has vegetation growing out of it. I'm not sure why the mounds of dirt are there. Camille came out and looked at them the other day. I have heard a work order has been put in to remove the dirt and to put in a new fence, because the fence that is there was put in by Edison back in the 1960s. And it's basically got holes and it's falling apart. What I'm concerned with, I have a lot of concerns, obviously. I called the health office twice, and I've written this email asking for someone to please call me back. I appreciate that Camille came, but it's a very serious situation health-wise, and I'm not even sure why they put these giant mounds. I mean, the mounds are humongous. I don't know why, and if you look out our back window, they're like pretty much right there. Right before the fence, and they've been seen coming in, not by us, but also by people who have done work at our home. So I want to know when this is going to be taken care of before we get more nests. They're chewing under our house. We were told to get rat poison, which we did, and since then, like I said, a 3rd nest popped up. So I just want to know when this is going to be taken care of. We have never had this problem before. The fence definitely needs to be replaced, and this dirt needs to be removed immediately.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to bring this issue to your attention. Also, thank you to Camille for coming out to our house, I think a day after we first brought it to our attention, or the attention of the health department. She did, take a look around the property and saw the fence behind us, which runs the whole length of that street back there, from our house all the way down to New Durham Road. Ours has obviously got a lot of holes in the bottom especially, so it's not that hard for critters to, get out and into our backyard and then make it to the front, where I did show Camille, or she showed me what appeared to be rat nests on the walkway or underneath the walkway right in the front of our house. And, recommended, using rat poison to try and get rid of them, and gave me a few pointers on how to work it, which I did. And it seemed for the first couple of days that that worked. But then one day, yesterday, I saw a few of the pellets had come up where I had put them down. So the rat was obviously, or rats were trying to get up there onto the open air. And today I saw a new hole. So I repeated the treatment with the rat poison. But, I have to say that I'm not a professional, person in this area, and I think if a much more effective treatment would be for the township, which created the problem with these mounds of dirt and vegetation behind our house, that the township to take care of it, and maybe not at our property either. There's a bus stop across the street from our house practically where a lot of children gather. So we want to make sure that, public safety is given a real priority and that this is handled by, people who are trained to make sure that this problem is dealt with and will not happen again. And of course, those dirt mounds will at least help to make sure that this does not happen again. In that area was the garage that burned down a couple of years ago, which came very close to burning our house down, and possibly the houses of neighbors as well. And then since that time, these dirt mounds have appeared. And it's a very big property back there, and I would think that you could put stuff that might be dangerous to public health further away from the homes, so that, there's a big woods back there and all that, so I think that might be a more appropriate place if you need to store piles of dirt, topsoil, or whatever it is. The mounds that are there today do not have any vegetation growing on them, but at least within the last week or so, there were mounds of rough dirt where there was vegetation growing, which I think helps to breed the rats, and if not the mice too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I know Mr. Elliott is not here.
He's not. I had just got this email today. That's why the health department went out. I just need about 24 hours just to figure out where to, it needs to be moved, but from what I understand, it needs to be placed on a pad. Because of stormwater runoff. So they put it on, as you said, that's where the garage burned down, the cement's there. So that's what they used, but we have to come up with a different solution. I just need a little time to figure out what it is. But I just wanted them to get out of there when I read about the rodent problem.
Yes, thank you.
So.
It's also a related problem, but since that building went down, it was kind of a buffer against the noise up on 287. And since that building came down, the noise level has increased significantly. So if someone could come from the township and do a reading of the sound decibels and determine whether, some type of sound blockage like the wall that's up on 287 that ends fairly close to where our house space begins, someone could look into that.
Council President, Maureen, isn't it true we have an architect now that we're going to be?
We do.
So we're going to be rebuilding that building. So hopefully when that building gets rebuilt, it'll replace that buffer for you.
Okay.
That's something that.
Okay, but can it still be close, not so close to the houses as that last place? 'Cause
Well, I'm sure that'll go before the planning board and everything else,
okay,
before it
so
gets
we'd have
built.
an opportunity to talk about that. Okay.
Right.
Just one more comment, and when we were listening to the story before, the noise and the pounding is starting before 7 a.m.
In the Public Works
which it
Department.
never did before it was rebuilt. So it starts 5, 6, so I just want you to be aware if the ordinance is 7, it's happening.
Yeah. Definitely before 7 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still on the list. Mr. Diamond.
Is Councilman Deal coming this evening?
He was supposed to be here probably about now, and I do not know at
Why
this
why don't I pass and let the next person go?
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
We're off the list. Mr. Diamond.
Good evening, Anthony Diamond, 15 Rodex Circle. I wanted to first thank the Committee of the Whole last week. I think it's not a perfect situation, but it's the consensus in the public is that it's really all we have right now to get to the bottom of what happened. So I encourage the committee to continue doing what they're doing. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. People talk about what should have been brought up, what should not have been brought up. I don't know. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the committee. So I just want to pass along encouraging words to keep it up, because we are going through now what would be a second election cycle, and it's important that we get to the bottom of it. So I just wanted to thank you guys again. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're off the list. Anybody else? Ms. Nemitz. Go ahead. You can come on.
1 second. Mr. Nemitz, 162B Bay Street. I just want to make a comment or two about the tree inventory. I did have some text messaging with Chris Mazauskas because he's very active with our Sustainable New Jersey Green Team. And he's very concerned about the trees, as I think everybody knows. One of the things that he's very concerned about is that we have not redone our tree inventory to identify the native and invasive tree species and their locations, and that this is needed for our urban forestry plan. If we don't do this, we risk losing the fact that we have an Edison Tree City designation, which has expired as of Labor Day. As of Arbor Day, per the Arbor Day Foundation. I can remember many years ago when Walter Stossel had scouts working on doing that inventory and getting our designation as a tree city. So in the past, we've made great progress in this area, and we are lagging behind. And the question is, what do we need to do to get that inventory started or done? I don't know what the status of it is, if anybody can figure that out. And I don't think we have somebody who's qualified or who's doing it or something. We're completely missing something in this area. So we need to do something with that. I want to take a couple of minutes here to talk about Suez. And I know that it sounds like Suez is sort of a moot point. But for me, that is the tale of two Trojan horses. We've got the Trojan horse, Suez, who said to everybody, we're going to give you all this money and you're going to have to pay it back in 40 years, but look, you're going to get, a big new recreation center and a lot of help, and you won't have to worry about it because we're going to take care of it. That was one Trojan horse giving us the recreation center. The other Trojan horse is we have the Food and Water Watch saying to everybody, listen, you don't need that. You can do it yourselves. Do it yourselves. That's your Trojan horse. Self-insure it. Do it yourselves. Well, I want to say to you that exactly 10 years ago this week, I was in a doctor's office not a doctor's office, I was in Robert Wood. And this very nice surgeon was putting his magic wand down through my veins and arteries to see what the problems were there. Very nice guy. And when he got done looking, he said, and I kept trying to look at the screen. I wanted to see what he was seeing. Very interesting. He said, gee, I thought we could do some stents, but the problem is really too big, and I'm going to call for surgery. Well, I have to tell you that if I had been self-insured, I don't think that I would have the bypass surgery that I have today, because I don't think anybody would have done that, not for self-insurance, which is now the problem that we are faced with the referendum having passed, that with self-insurance, we don't have anybody except us to do it. Well, if I had had nobody except me to do it or whatever, I probably wouldn't be here. Either Trojan horse turned out to be really a big disaster. Doesn't matter, it's a big disaster. Disaster for the town, disaster for all of the people who were involved on the council, the administration. I don't think anybody really won in this situation. It's true we've made a decision, and now we've got 4 years that we have to do something. So my question to you, first of all, is, do we have any idea whether we need stents? Do we need bypass surgery? I think we're getting a new heart with the pumping station that we're doing with Metuchen. Yeah, at least that's one way to look at getting a new heart. But do we have any idea? Has anybody looked to see what we need there? Do we have a plan to look and see what we need there? I think we should start talking now about what it is that we're going to be doing and not end up at the beginning of the year knowing absolutely no idea of where we're going because nobody has discussed it, which is how we got into this problem in the first place because nobody talked about it and nobody did anything about it. I'm putting it out there because we have to put it on the agenda and begin to find out what it is that's going to be happening. Last but not least, to the people in Clara, Barton, I want them to know that 979 Amboy Avenue, the 4-story building with the 2 parking decks below ground, has been back at the Technical Review Committee, and they're not done. They're coming back to the Technical Review Committee, and they really are anxious to get something done here, and there are a lot of problems. I put it in the agenda for the Clara Barton Neighborhood Preservation Committee for this meeting on Thursday, and I have added information that was in Mr. Bignell's latest report so that people could take the opportunity to read what our planner had to say. They are still proposing out there. My problem with this whole thing is we had a planner who gave us a redevelopment plan that is a huge problem for Clara Barton. We do not need concrete 4-story buildings in Clara Barton, and I can tell you most of the people that I've ever talked to don't want that. They thought they were going to have a nice little downtown that was going to be spruced up and fixed up and was going to have nice stores and some restaurants, not 4-story concrete monstrosities with 2 stories of underground and tandem parking at that.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you.
Anybody? Mr. Diamond.
Bruce Diamond, 74 Calvert. Before I get into my spiel, are they starting the Tingley paving tonight the way the sign said?
No, they are not. It was
Good.
called off due to weather.
Thank you. I don't want to waste my time. I am curious. I watched the committee of the whole meeting, and I guess, as Anthony said, it's not the best forum to do this, but it's better than nothing. It's kind of disappointing the way it works out. I am curious, the voicemail that Jerry played, does anybody know how old that was? Councilman Patel, you gave it to him.
This was given long back. When I received, I was forwarded. I don't know.
Oh, 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago?
Maybe more than a year ago.
Okay. I'm trying to understand
know
how
the
it
date
relates to the hate flyer.
I don't know.
Do you think it relates to the hate flyer?
And Mr. Diamond,
He doesn't have to answer. I remember that from last week. Please
yeah.
don't waste my time, sir.
okay.
If he doesn't want to answer, he doesn't have to answer.
Mr. Bruce Diamond, again, I don't think there is any relevance from my standpoint of view. This is long back, I think more than a year. I was just a pass-through messenger, nothing more than that. And I can't tell you where it connects, why it connects. That's not.
Didn't make any sense to me either.
I can't. I'm not the, I would say, the attorney or the judge or anyone who can tell you.
We're in the same boat, sir. But out of curiosity, what purpose did it serve? I mean, if I had a message for you from Esther, I would just tell you, Esther says hello. I wouldn't normally forward you the voicemail that Esther left on my phone.
That's how most of the time, if it's important, I just forward, so I don't have to keep bugging anyone.
Gotcha. Okay. It just seemed kind of weird to me. As to Jerry's testimony, it's interesting how he spent so much time on the Board of Education accomplishments, yet as with almost every other witness, he remembers nothing. It's like Sergeant Schultz comes to every meeting to testify. It's just strange. He has absolutely no details about his campaign. Seems to me the way he runs his meetings with such an iron fist, he must have a great memory because he's such a demanding manager. And so it just shocks me that he doesn't remember any of this. The other thing that I thought was ironic was Jerry kept saying that he was the victim, but without sounding too silly, I think that was the purpose of the hate flyer, to make Jerry the victim. Does that seem like that to anybody else here? Okay, I understand. The meeting between the council and the Board of Education, is this the first meeting? No. You've had many.
I think, Councilman Deal, we've had 5 or 6, I think.
Over the years,
Yeah.
we've had several.
This past year?
Only a couple. The big one we had was on security.
Okay.
Other than that, no, we haven't had many.
Are you all aware that the Open Space Committee did give a list of available open pieces of property that are not protected by the Rossi to the committee?
Yes.
Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. When will the real estate tax bills be going out? I guess you have to wait for the budget, or are you going to do an
The
estimate?
budget passed, so they'll probably
Okay.
be going out in the next 25 days.
And when is the next, isn't it?
Oh, wow, no, probably very soon. I'm
Isn't
losing
it
track
due
of
the
time.
end of the month?
Yeah, they're probably mailing them right now.
Okay. I sent a few of you email, apparently, an Edison High School football coach, Tom White's, organized a food drive for St. James Food Pantry. It'd be wonderful if you announced that, but not during my time.
Thank you, sir.
We'd appreciate it. It's a great non-denominational asset the town has. And lastly, Councilman Coyle, as with Councilman Patel, you don't have to answer, but I'm just at a loss to understanding what you would have done with the W-2s, why you needed them.
Mr. Bruce Diamond, I did not ask for any.
No, I was citing your, I understood you didn't have to answer, and Councilman Coyle is out. Have any of you ever requested W-2s?
No.
How do you know that kind of information? When you need to know about salaries in town, how do you gather that information?
I think through the Finance Committee, we normally get a payroll report with salary information. based on
And that's
cash flow
sufficient
pay.
for whatever you're trying to understand about the budget?
For budgeting and planning purposes, that's always been sufficient.
Is it by name or by position?
Yeah, it's normally by department.
And is it broken
by
down?
rank, yeah, by position.
Blah, blah, blah?
Correct.
Okay, I'm still at a loss to understand why it's needed. Thank you, everybody.
Council President,
Yes, sir.
I want to follow up on a question that Mr. Diamond had, because I have the same question, and that is, at the Committee of the Whole meeting, the lawyer for Mr. Shi suggested that I be disqualified from asking questions, along with 3 other of my colleagues, that we would be disqualified. And the basis for their argument was that there was a voice message that was left on A.J. Patel's voicemail from Tom Lanky, which I felt was, kind of harmless as a voicemail. But my question is, they wanted to use that to disqualify me from asking questions. And I guess my question goes to my fellow councilman, with all due respect. What was the motive in you giving the lawyer and Jerry Shi that if they were going to use it to disqualify me?
Councilman, Deal, with due respect, this is not something that was done recently. This was done 1.5 years ago when I received, and that's what normally, if it is an important message for someone to look at, because the technology changes, the phone changes, and we don't continue to keep the same phones. But if someone wants to use some information, again, that I can't help on that. I'm not sure why it was used. In fact, he was asking me to disqualify, not to answer the question, knowing the other areas. So this is not something that I purposefully did or something. This is more than a year-old voice message that was passed on, and this is not the one. I don't keep the phones. Phones don't have those voice messages. We change the plans from AT&T to Verizon or XYZ, so the phones are not there.
Well, I don't know if, it may have been a year. I lose track of time because, we've been working with this idea of a committee of the whole, and certainly the idea of finding out who was responsible for the flyers for a couple of years. But a question I have is, who asked you for that voicemail?
No, no one asked me. This was long back, it was sent to me, like I had this. So I only forwarded that just so that I don't have to keep follow up.
Who did you forward it to?
It was forwarded to Mr. Shi, and this is more than a year and a half ago. And I don't know the context why it was used. Again, I'm not the expert here to figure it out where and what to use.
Well, thank you, Councilman, and I appreciate you answering that question. Because the other night, it was curiouser and curiouser to me that, the defense was, or the position was, that 4 of us were going to be disqualified, and I really didn't see a single reason in any of their arguments why any of us would be disqualified. But the question came up, and it was from me, where did that come from? Where did that come from? How did you get it? Where did it come from? Because there was silence. I didn't hear anybody take responsibility for that. Again, I'm going to say, you could play it 1,000 times. It's pretty harmless. I don't see why they would ever think that I'd be disqualified on that. But I was curious to see, where it came from, who gave it to them, and why they used it like that. But again, they also used other things that I didn't think made sense either.
And Councilman Deal, with all due respect, again, if someone has the information, nobody disclosed me who's going to use what information at what point in time. So again, the argument that was made to disqualify 4 of us was, again, I don't agree with that, but that's the discussion that happened that night.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Rebuttal?
Still Bruce Diamond. Thank you, AJ, for answering my question. I appreciate that. With what Sam said before about the noise, so much of the noise that we're subjected to in town is after the hours that are when inspectors are available. I'm of the thinking that maybe there should be construction inspectors driving around to construction sites on Saturdays and Sundays to see if they're working and what kind of noise they're making. I've got a garbage truck that parks. It used to park next to the construction site next to me when there was a portage on there, and 3 guys would go to the bathroom for 20 minutes, and I'd hear a diesel truck running at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now all I hear is pickups at 6:30. I've got to go to court in 2 weeks to testify on behalf, I guess, of the residents, which is me, that the guy's in fact doing it. Why can't the town do something proactively with the noises in town, have inspectors available off hours, not just during working hours?
Marina, let you speak, but the way that we've handled it in the past, and when I've dealt with situations similar to that, is we ask police to either enforce or document at that point, and then have the proper department go in and deal with it directly. We had an issue with a warehouse. There was the same complaint, running, idling trucks. So police will be called out, sent out, and that would be what we would have as the enforcement for the moment. And then what we did is work through health and zoning to permanently correct the issue. Now, again, you run into situations that you have repeated offenders and people who do not want to abide by the rules, so that we get into another situation with that. It has to be escalated and has to be further enforced. But that's traditionally normally how we handled it in the past.
So what would you just call the general police department line and say, I've got a noise problem every Tuesday at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they'll put a car out there at 6 o'clock waiting to listen?
No, you would normally call the police when the noise is happening.
Won't that be too late?
Not if it's ongoing. A lot of these issues that and I'd say in every situation is different, but some of the ones that have been ongoing where a truck is idling, we've been able to get police cars out there.
This isn't normally idling. This is just they stop, they make a pickup, or one of the construction workers is showing up on a Sunday to work, and if they're just banging nails in the house, I don't care. But when they're making noise outside, I object to that. Sunday is, supposed to be a quiet day.
You're correct.
Okay, thank you. And thanks again, AJ.
Oh, I also want to add on,
Council President?
Yes.
Also, you have the ability to make a citizen's complaint.
I do that through the health department. I send,
You don't even have to go to the health department. You can go to the police and fill out the form, note the ordinance that you feel that they're in violation of, and it would be scheduled for court in the Edison Municipal Court at some point in the near future following
Okay.
your complaint.
thank you.
Yep.
but I also want to add on to this. It's because even 2 years ago in 2017, I brought to attention where trucks have been idling across from Runyon Avenue, across from Edison Subs. And they idle there for minutes at a time. And I remember one time I went out there, that was at like 11 p.m., and I remember texting Maureen then, that late too. But it's like we're playing a game of catch when the residents tell us, when they show us pictures. I physically went out there, I called the cops, the police filed the incident number, but then zoning or, whatever department, because they don't catch them in the act, because no one's working that hour, nothing's done. Like, this is, I don't know if the solution is just more people or perhaps different hours. And I say this not just because of the presentation I just gave right now, perhaps the example that you're thinking of, but the several examples that I'm thinking of and the people that have reached out to me today after that video, there's countless streets where there's just trucks that are, I know someone's in the audience right now who also sent, or I guess Lisa left, but who also sent me pictures, proof that trucks in town are breaking laws. And it's the same companies over and over again. But it's like we have to catch them in the act, but we don't have the staff that can be there at late hours.
I'm not aware, Councilman Joshi, that a police officer being on site gets dismissed for not being a zoning officer when he's filing a report. That has never been the experience that I've had. So I'm not sure if there's something missing in between that in the steps that a police officer's report wouldn't be taken into account as a witness to a violation.
I mean, I'll give you an example off Runyon Avenue. I started complaining about it 2 years ago, followed up with it most of last year. At that point, early this year was when the resident just gave up. I gave the incident number, and trucks are still idling there. I mean, if you go at 11 o'clock at night, they're going to be there again. It happens every single night.
And again, it's the enforcement. It's like I said, I've encountered situations when you have people who are just repeated offenders, so it's going to take some work. There are some that are willing to work with the town, but there are others that are not. So
I agree. There are repeat offenders, but to those, I think the difference in the position that I'm trying to say is whether it's zoning, health, and police, all three should slap as many fines on these repeat offenders, knowing that they've been doing this since 2009. Like, just hit them with as many fines as you can.
Well,
I don't have any sympathy for
I
it.
understand
Council
your
President,
passion about it, Councilman Quilla, but you have to remember that you have to abide by the ordinance, and then they have to go in front of the judge. You cannot just arbitrarily begin to fine them repeatedly just because we're upset that they're repeated offenders. It has to follow the legal process. And then they have to go in front of the judge, and it's up to the judge to enforce it at that point.
And I agree with that, but the point I'm trying to make is that after hours, we don't have someone from the health or zoning department that is readily available. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when there are repeat offenders, I get it. I agree. We have to abide by the laws. But we know that they're repeat offenders. The example that I just gave you in the presentation tonight, I looked through the township code. There was at least 5 different violations there. 5. Hit them with all 5.
Again, if they're
That's
violating
the-
it,
that's
then
the approach that I
that's-
would rather take.
I understand. I understand your approach. I'm not disputing your approach. It's just can go hit him 5 and then hit him 5 minutes later. That's I guess.
No, and the reason why I came up with the number between 2,000 to 3,000 was because I added up between the different zoning and health violations and the amount of time spaced out between 10 days. That's the maximum number that we would be able to get to if they don't follow.
Well, right, and it's going to be up to the judge to enforce that.
You're right, you're right.
It's going to be, right, so I'm not disputing, and I agree with you that something needs to be done about it, but we don't control that. That's going to be, we have to abide by what's in the ordinance and what we can fine them for, and then they have to go up to the judge. It's probably going to be up to the judge at some point. He's going to say enough is enough.
I agree with that. I agree. I'm just saying that we need to enforce. We're not even getting to the point where, I mean, we're arguing about the degree of enforcement right now. We don't even enforce right now. That's a reality.
Council President,
Yes, Councilman.
I'm willing to meet with Councilman Joshi and share our repeat list that the administration and I are going over with Maureen, and he certainly can add to it. And just Jim Ayette from zoning is here on Saturdays a lot now, so
I was
knowing
gonna
this
suggest that, yeah.
problem now, and I'll be right with you, Councilman Joshi, and we'll
Okay.
make it happen.
I think it's probably a good idea to sit with Jim, probably understand the process that they go through, because their numbers have increased. They got more feet on the ground, and again, taking the size of Edison into consideration, it's something that I think will be helpful to sit with Mr. Ayat and have him walk you through, and then exchange ideas to see whether we get to a good place to enforce it. I agree. I think we all want to get to the same place. It's just the proper avenues to get there.
I agree with that. I'm just saying, from my experience, there's a lack of enforcement and there's too much sympathy that's given. And I say this because there are so many repeat offenders.
There are, just no different than someone who's committed a crime multiple times, no matter how many times you put them in jail. You know, until you permanently put them in jail. So I think probably the best approach to start with will be to sit with the zoning officer, and then maybe he can walk you through a little bit more in detail as to how they normally manage this process and see where that fits into what you're encountering.
I'll gladly sit down with them and, you know, see how that changes.
Because I don't want to go as far as to saying that there's no enforcement, knowing that numbers are showing different. That's all I can say. I haven't recently gone through the budget process through that, so.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tar.
Don Tar, 52 Reeder Road, Edison. I'd like to begin by commending the committee for your attempts to bring the truth into everyone's vision by the committee of the whole. It's indeed frustrating to sit in the audience and watch the frustration that committee members are going through in their efforts to obtain the truth. It's very disquieting to see witnesses appear before the committee with the obvious intention of obfuscating, of avoiding, of deflecting, and doing everything possible to keep from getting to the bottom of that heinous flyer. It's particularly disgusting when one of them is the president of the Board of Education of Edison Township. In Mr. Shee's testimony, he made an obvious attempt to deal with the situation in the way that's being dealt with on the national level by deflecting and denying, by calling people who are not racists, racists, by taking Facebook postings out of context without their entire postings being listed, by calling people who are making a post in jest as racist, racist. I wonder where the racism really lies. And I wonder where the courage really lies. Courage lies in a person who comes before the committee and tells the truth. Courage lies with a person who isn't afraid to do whatever necessary to prove that they were not part and parcel of this heinous action. If I were a person who was accused of being in league with the production or dissemination of a racist flyer, I would do everything in my efforts to try to disprove those thoughts. But that would take courage. I wonder if there's any courage there. I believe the committee was bantering about the possibility of requiring Mr. Shi to provide his fingerprints and to take a lie detector test. In order to deflect, his attorney said, "Send me a letter." My question to this committee is, did you send that letter to Mr. Shi yet?
Council President, I did speak with the Council President today. That is being prepared or has been sent at this time, yes.
Mr. Deal, do you know the, Councilman Deal, do you know the timeline that would be inherent with that letter?
I do not, sir.
And a third question, if compliance is refused, what action does the Committee of the Whole contemplate? Any answers?
Council President, at this point, all communications are going to have to go directly through Mr. Shi, because as I understand it, his attorney has indicated to Mr. Malik Schmidt that he was retained solely to represent Mr. Shi for the night of the hearing, and that all further communication should be directed to Mr. Shi directly. So we don't know whether Mr. Shi will respond to the inquiry. We hope that he will, and if not, we'll discuss with our attorneys what, if any, action we can take.
Having sat in the audience through these proceedings, you can sometimes read the will of the people by watching the expressions on their faces, and the expressions of incredulity, the expressions of disgust, the expressions of disbelief were plainly evident at that last meeting regarding the testimony of Board President Shi. It is my wish, my desire, that this committee continue to work to get to the bottom, whoever was responsible for disseminating, for drafting, for placing the stamps, for doing anything possible to distribute that heinous racist flyer, because that is truly racist. It is truly disgusting. And anybody who participated in that is racist and disgusting.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to add to that, because that night I had made a Facebook post saying that we were working with federal authorities, and I had a lot of people ask me just later that night after we left, when I said federal authorities, I'm specifically referring to the Postal Inspection Office. So it's not the, the common question that was asked was, the assumption was that the FBI or someone was working on it. That's not the case. And the way that, because the U.S. Post Office, we got the untouched flyers from them, the ones that were not mailed out, the ones that did not have, when they were picked up by the post office, they used gloves to pick them up. So I picked those up, we sent them out to the agency that was running the fingerprints. That CD was sent back to us, and we don't have, and the municipality doesn't even have the authority to run the APHIS fingerprints. That has to be done specifically by us giving the CD to the post office, which then they run the APHIS fingerprint, or through, run the fingerprints through the APHIS system. So that's the extent to which we are working with federal authorities, not to be confused with the FBI. If it was not for the Committee of the Whole, we would be absolutely nowhere right now. Just wanted to make that clear.
Council President?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Tarr for his insight, because certainly he hit the nail on the head when he talked about frustration. This has been unbelievably frustrating over the past 2 years. When Councilman Joshi just mentioned the FBI, you've heard me say it before. Could you imagine if we had the FBI? Could you imagine? I would think, and I've said it before, kind of in jest, but if we had the FBI, if we had real cooperation, if we had real law enforcement agencies zoning in on this, zeroing in on this, probably have this done by Thursday. Because there's so much out there, but we can't see. It's like mercury. It's slipping through you can't seem to get answers. You can't seem to get cooperation. I wonder if there's such a thing, Counselor, as obstruction of counsel. Can we charge somebody with obstruction of counsel? Because I would if I could. Here we're trying to do, our hearts are in the right place. Our sights are in the right place. We're trying to get to the bottom of this thing. How come in Edison, New Jersey, it has been so difficult to get answers? Why is that so? And why are we, 4 of us the other night, singled out as somehow tainted and not allowed to ask questions? What kind of sense, and you heard me say it the other night, what kind of sense does that make? To me, none at all. It's an upside-down world when I hear an argument like that. I want to thank Mr. Tarr for sharing his insight, because I share it, and I share the frustration. I don't know what we can do, but I do pledge this to Mr. Tarr and the rest of the folks out there. I said it on day one when we had residents in the audience come up and say, "You'll never find him. You'll never solve this." I'll never stop trying. I'm not going to stop trying. As long as I'm sitting here, I'm not going to stop trying. Because I do believe that we've done some things already. Anybody out there thinking of doing this again has to know they're going to be brought up here and questioned just like we've questioned. They're going to be subject to relentless pursuit, because that's what we're in right now, relentless pursuit of the truth. And as a result, in the last year or so, we haven't seen anything like that. We've seen some things that are disappointing, to say the least, but nothing like that. So we're not going to stop. I'm not going to stop as long as I'm here. And I'm going to figure out everything we can to get to the truth and bring the people here and hope they tell the truth. And I hope the people watching on television and the people in the audience see it for what it is. See it. We don't have to have anybody say, "Okay, I did it." Okay, put the facts together yourself. Where are we? I'll go back to my point. If we had the FBI, it'd be done tomorrow. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Crystal, 14 Fox Road. I want Jerry Shee arrested immediately. I agree with what he said and with what you said the other day at the Committee of the Whole. He said he didn't want you to ask him questions because people came up to you, said maybe you should be mayor, maybe you should be this. You're on my YouTube channel, and I came up to you and I said you should be mayor. So what the hell is his problem? He's a freaking idiot. All right? That's it. Why don't you guys arrest him? These were campaign flyers disguised as racial flyers. No one ever called them out for what it is. And what's taking so long to arrest him? Why was it taken away from the Edison Police Department? The Attorney General did nothing. I mean, are we going to schedule another Committee of the Whole?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Do we have a date?
Not yet.
Do we know who we're questioning? Cesar Suarez, Faguni Patel, and who else?
Our list isn't finalized yet, sir. It would be, I don't want to be inaccurate.
All right.
But we are scheduling another meeting. We do have more people to interview. That's where we are so far. You're right, the Edison Police Department was taken off the case by the Attorney General's office, and then we never heard anything about that. as far as, again, and I'm going to point this out, because this is another curious part of this whole thing. That is, nobody here has ever accused anybody of anything. We've never said anybody's guilty. We're just finding the truth. So as far as penalties or anything, penalties can't be assigned until someone is found to be guilty of it or responsible of it. We're not there yet. But you're right in that the Edison Police Department had to turn it over to the AG's office. We never, after that, we couldn't even get an answer. Something, it's curiouser and curiouser. I really would like to see where this goes. Thank you.
I mean, who benefited from it the most? Jerry Shee. He's the one who got elected. I mean, 1 + 1 = 2.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi. My name is Michele Moscaritolo. I live on 6 Wainwright Street, Edison, New Jersey. If anybody doesn't know where that is, it's the little block off Lafayette, right by 7-Eleven. For years and years and years, we've been asking the board to bring that 7-Eleven up to some kind of code. About 3 years ago, I ran an Oprah. There is no zoning for that 7-Eleven. How it became a 24-hour business, we still don't know. It's about 10 feet away from our bedroom windows. I've sent emails. You came over, you talked to my mother. My parents are seniors. It's getting worse. The more bars that open up towards Menlo Mall, the later the hours are. They're not responsible. I've talked to them. I've talked to the owners. They said, Edison doesn't require anything, and we don't live here. We don't care. Garbage isn't cleaned up. It's cleaned up at my expense. There used to be a throughway with the executive plaza behind there. Years ago, we talked to them. They did put up planters, and over the years, we filled them in ourselves with trees and everything else. Headlights, noise, loitering, drug dealing, drug use, all on our lawn. So we've emailed and emailed, and the reason why I come up tonight is because I heard there was going to be a tree fund or something, and I thought that was the perfect opportunity to get trees there or to work as some kind of barrier, noise reduction, everything else. The trucks, the cars, the radios, the kids, it's not ending, and no one's answering any questions. Everyone says, oh, quality of life is our first issue, quality of life this. Nothing's happening. So now I'm before you tonight asking for answers. Where do we go from here? How do you bring a business up to code? Obviously, they have to be forced into it because they're not being good neighbors. And they don't care. They blatantly said they don't care.
I think the first step that we should take is Mr. Elliott is not here tonight, but beginning with the Department of Health, and then...
I've called the Department of Health. I've called the police. The police are there many times. They've arrested people there. They know what's going on. They said the township needs to be involved. It's not like we don't have phones and we don't call the police. It's a big problem.
Council President?
Yes, sir.
I did go out there and I did speak to your mom.
You did?
And...
she's 80.
Right.
They don't deserve to live like this. I mean,
No,
I lived in this town for 44 years.
She's a wonderful woman.
Right.
And I did bring it to the attention of the police, and I think we have selective enforcement on that area right now, Maureen, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's under selective enforcement because of the issues.
I just want to know, how do we, since I ran an Oprah, somehow over the years, they just squeezed in it. It was never a 24-hour business to start with. It was a local neighborhood deli that was then purchased by a 7-Eleven, which meant they were open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. There were trees around the property and everything else. As time went on, it just turned 24 hours. We were never notified of that.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Like, how do we bring it up to code? What is the code? Because when I did run an Oprah, everyone said they have no idea.
Tomorrow I will speak to our zoning officer and have him take a look at
It's
this.
a simple fix.
Right.
Put up proper shrubs, put up proper fencing, and you're done. You want to do business in our neighborhood, more power to you. Not at my expense. Not at my expense.
I agree with you.
I'm not in a low-tax area or any of that stuff.
Right.
I'm not.
And your property is very well maintained, too, by the way.
We're very proud of our property.
Yes.
It took, my parents are immigrants. It took them years to build that. For what? So someone can come in and destroy somebody else's dream? It's not going to work anymore. And I'm standing in front of you all telling you this is not going to work anymore. We have cameras up at our expense. We're putting trees in at our expense. My parents are 82 years old and 80. Maybe they were terrified because they were immigrants come here years ago. I'm not. We're not going to do it anymore. Either you bring them up to code, or we have to go further. There's got to be some kind of zoning rules or codes for a 24-hour business that's 8 feet from my bedroom window. There has to be. If there isn't, then you're not doing your jobs at all.
I agree with you. I will talk with Jim Ayotte tomorrow, and I will stay after the meeting. I'll get your phone number, and I'll be in touch with you about it, okay?
All right, we'll see.
Council President?
Yes, sir.
I know in April of this year, I got an email from either you or your parents, which I forwarded to Mr. Elliott, and I believe he had indicated at that time that he was going to set up a meeting between you, your parents, and the owners of 7-Eleven.
Never happened.
That never happened?
Never happened.
Okay, so we'll have to follow up.
I've heard it over and over and over, and that's enough.
Okay.
Time's up. You guys had plenty of time to fix this. It's trees, for God's sake. That's all it is. It's trees. They don't want to water them? I will. I water everything else on that street. But we're not doing it anymore. Either you fix the problem or you move on. Maybe it's not the job for you. It's really that simple. But there's no reason why people have to live and feel like that somebody's on their front lawn getting high. It's not cute. And then you call the cops and they say the town has to get involved. None of this is funny. None of this is cute. When you destroy somebody's quality of life, you're wrong. You need to take ownership of that and fix it. That's it. I don't bother nobody. I don't expect that back. They can't respect where they work, where they do business, then they have to go. I'm not going.
Definitely agree with you on this. Even if it's a natural barrier, we should, I hope.
I'll talk to Jim. I'll talk to Jim tomorrow about it.
Involved and get something if
I just want to know, and I want to know what's supposed to be there. When I put up a 2-car garage, they told me exactly what had to be there. They came and inspected it. So I want to know what's supposed to be there.
If the zoning officer pulls the file on the property.
There is none. I ran an Oprah. I'm telling you what's going on. And I don't want to keep repeating myself. At first it was emails, it was phone calls, it was conversations. The only ones who cared a little bit were the Lombardis, and they put up that barrier for us. But the 7-Eleven is absolutely, it's filth. I'm paying someone to sweep a street that I pay taxes for because I don't want the garbage at my front door. Do you understand what's going on here? They refuse to sweep.
Right.
They refuse to put a shrub up, anything. And when you're that close to somebody, I don't know how they got through, how it squeaked through years ago. I don't know what the case is. Everything was corrupt. I can tell you over the years as growing up here, don't know how that happened. But the more businesses go up in that area, and businesses are going up and it's getting busier and busier, everyone is aware of that, the more we're paying the price for it. What's it going to take? Somebody to die again? Somebody to get shot? What is it? Like, what is it going to take?
Sir, I think Councilman Zendelsky is going to take the lead in trying to help you out to coordinate with everybody that needs to be involved in order for this to be corrected. Confident that we'll find a correction. We just got to get the right people involved.
I mean, 7-Eleven is a corporation. You can call them up and say, look, if you can't come up to code, you can't be here.
Sir, we'll address it. If you want to leave your number with Mr. Zendelsky, he'll take the lead on that.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Council President,
Yes, sir.
I want to say I have a lot of faith in Councilman Zendelsky when he says he's going to go out there and look into it. I'm assured that tomorrow that's exactly what he's going to do. I think there's a very interesting question there, Councilman, and that is, how does it go from 7 in the morning to 11 at night to 24 hours? And, maybe somewhere the records may not be gone. They just may be misplaced or not available or somewhere else. So there are some very, very good questions about this. So I have my faith in Councilman Zendelsky, and I look forward to hearing what he has to say. Thank you, Council President.
I agree with that, too. And I know you mentioned the tree fund, which I know I missed the last meeting for reasons I couldn't make it. But I hope that gets put on the agenda again. I can't stress this enough. There's $300,000 in that fund. We physically cannot put 30,000 trees on township property. Like, it's time we start using that fund and giving it back to the residents. Like, I heard the arguments before, I saw what the other residents said, but if we give the residents a waiver and say that, like, per lot, you're allowed to get one a year, then they'll maintain it. It's hard for the town to maintain, even if we planted all 30,000 trees, we wouldn't be able to maintain, they would die. Like, what are we doing with this fund? Like, let's not be silly, let's not overcomplicate the problem. I hope we put it up for the agenda, so.
Councilman Joshi, I don't think it was silly. I think there were some valid questions that just need to be addressed. So I think in respect to those people who've taken heart into this town and been devoted over the years, there were some valid points. I don't think anybody's against it. I think everybody actually said that they're in favor of it. We just gotta, either some of the questions that were asked or some of the concerns just need to be addressed and who is going to be involved. And so it was a lot of more the logistical of how it was going to be managed, not that with the intention of being silly.
Council President, after the last meeting, when that ordinance was tabled, and I spoke with Ms. Nemitz, we had talked about sending the ordinance to the Green Team, the Open Space Committee, the Environmental Commission, and through the clerk, it was emailed to all those groups the following day.
Right.
And I don't know if, Cheryl, if you got any response to it. I know I didn't get any response from those groups in terms of what their thoughts are with regard to the proposed ordinance, but I would like some sort of response from them with regard to that, because if they don't respond, I'm going to have to assume that they're okay with it.
As open space, I can tell you, we're waiting to find out how many trees have been planted the last 2 years.
And that's what I asked Maureen about, Ms. Ruan about earlier today, and she said you're still investigating that very issue. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Ms. Orchid.
Hi, Maria Orchid, 83 Jefferson. There's a couple of things that we wanted to talk about. I'm sorry I'm late, I apologize. I had an event I had to be at. Just want to remind everybody, October 19th, we're having the block party at Clara Barton First Aid Squad. Hopefully everybody can attend. It's a new location because previously we had the annual black party at St. Stephen's. Unfortunately, St. Stephen's had to close, so it's a new location. In regards to the trees, I was doing some investigating. New York City has a procedure, and I forward that procedure on to Chris. So maybe he can discuss it with the powers that be and the environmental committee on what kind of language. Everything, the intention was good. It was just the language wasn't correct. And we always want to preserve the trees and have more trees in our community. So this issue wasn't going to go away. And Saturday, we had the good fortune to go to the 25th New Jersey DEP at the forestry. So we learned more information regarding how to safeguard the trees and how to work to get back our tree designation for Edison. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
Motion to close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Meeting stands adjourned.